Today is February 11th, 2024. It's been 2 years since my daddy went to be with God. I like to say he transitioned. I don't like to say he died because he's not dead. His spirit's alive, and I know that. I feel him and see him all the time. So, to honor him, I'm going to read some things that I've written about him, and I will do my best. I'm not real good at reading my own stuff. This first one is called Leading My Daddy Home, and I wrote it on Easter 2022. "16 years ago, my granddaughter Zoe died, and I thought that I would never feel the depths of sorrow and despair like I did with her. Boy, was I wrong. Do not misunderstand me. I'm very grateful that God chose me to lead my father home, but it came with a very heavy price inside my heart. I was there with him through the longest journey in our lives together. It lasted over 3 months. All I did was work all day and go take care of him all evening and night, every single day. There were happy times, very beautiful times, and sad times. The night before he died, God told me, take off work tomorrow. You have to be with him to lead him home. I did just that, even though it felt as if my heart was being torn apart. There is nowhere else I would have been. I loved him that deeply. I held his hand the whole time. He never let it go. I remember looking into his eyes just before he passed. I never realized what beautiful, captivating blue eyes he had until that moment. We locked eyes, and he looked into my heart and I into his. I told him to go home, that it was okay, I would be fine. I would find my way back to him again someday. He took his last breath and made his transition to the arms of God. I have no doubt that he is happy. He is at peace and free of the illness that plagued him on this side. I understand he is the blessed one, and the tears I cry are for me. I am the one left here in the crazy world, and it feels like my dad is 1,000,000 miles away. Yes, I would not trade a moment of spending my father's last days with him for anything. I feel grateful and humbled at the thought that my Creator chose me to lead my father home. I am sorry I am rambling. I think I'm just beginning to process it all and understand the sacred, holy, spiritual experience I went through with my father. Maybe I will not fully ever comprehend the magnitude of the journey we took together until I make it to heaven with him someday. I do not know. I just feel so completely grateful that we would get together through it all, and I could lead my daddy home. Okay, I had to stop for a little bit and get some stuff done around the house, get dinner cooked, but I'm back. The next story that I wrote that I want to read to commemorate my father, I wrote in 1999 for Christmas for him. It's called The Walking Stick. Dear Dad, I've been thinking about what I wanted to write you for a long while now. The present I bought you is more symbolic than anything else. However, I hope you will use it all the time. My mind is flipping from scene to scene, each scene as a memory from my childhood. Remember all the car wrecks I had, and knockdown dragouts, and yelling matches we had when I was a teenager? How could you forget, right? Then there were other memories, the ones that I hold very closest to my heart, the ones I wouldn't sell for $1 million. One of them is when we lived in Okmulgee. It was Christmas time, and you bought me some kind of thing that we made cars with. You and I would sit for what seemed like hours and pull these cars along an assembly line as we built them. Another was of me in great anticipation of your return from your business trips, wondering what charm for my bracelet you would bring me this time. Possibly the fondest memory of all is the night you took me out on a date. I think I was probably about 10 or so. I remember I dressed up real pretty and Mom did my hair. You took me to Arthur Treacher's Fish and Chips. I felt like the luckiest little girl in the world. Do you remember remodeling the house on West 8th Street? We put the paneling up in the den and redid the plumbing. I had so much fun with you then. I remember when you walked me down the aisle the first time. I was 17, terrified and excited all at once. You looked so handsome in your tuxedo. I remember being so totally captivated by you. You were always my hero, even when I was a teenager and too damn stubborn to admit it. You were my hero. I have other memories too. These are of me as a woman. You were there for me when no one else wanted to be when I went to treatment. You helped me take care of the kids when I was in college. Another memory is that of when, for about a year or so, I refused to talk to you. I remember you told me that when I was ready to talk, to call. The only regret I have is that it took me so long to get ready. I remember the night I finally called and we talked for at least a couple of hours. You told me you could not change the past, you could only start right where we were and to try to make it better. I will forever cherish every time you have given me my sobriety trip in AA. I will especially remember this past year, my 13th birthday sober. Every word you said about me is forever etched on my heart. I am still captivated by you. You are still my hero. You always will be. Someplace deep down inside of me, I will always be your little girl. So, I said all that to tell you this story. I heard a preacher teach about the symbolism of Moses and his rod or staff. I call it a walking stick. In the Bible, in biblical times, a man took his walking stick with him everywhere he went. It was a permanent part of him. Since he did not have photographs and most people could not read or write, he would log his memories on his walking stick. Each time a significant event occurred, he would cut a notch in his walking stick. So one could say that a man's walking stick represented his life. A man was married, at a notch. His father died, at a notch. His son was born, at a notch, and so on. When God told Moses to drop his walking stick before him, he was really asking Moses to surrender his life to him. When I heard about this, I started thinking about all the notches in your walking stick. I knew I had to get you one. When I was at the mall, I found one. It was tucked away in the back of the rack, and it wasn't quite as pretty as the other ones. It looked a little banged up and had knot holes or notches in it. It reminded me of our lives together, a little banged up and rough around the edges, yet strong enough to withstand the test of time. It was perfect. So you see, my dear Daddy, every time you look at this walking stick and you see the notches, pick one out and think of me, your little Andy. Call to mind a memory. Remember both the pleasant and the painful. I believe that we would not be where we are today without going through it all, good and bad. Most of all, remember the day I gave you this gift. Remember that I love you more than I know how to show, and never forget that you'll still be my hero. You're still my hero and always will be. Your loving daughter, Andrea. And that walking stick hangs in my living room. And every time I look at it, I think of him and the miracle God wrought in our hearts together. Because we had a rough start, but we finished really strong and we loved each other deeply. And I'm so completely grateful for that. And this is the last poem that I wrote, or story that I wrote for my dad, that I'm going to read. It's called Roses and Crows. I wrote it on July 15th, 2022. I have had this in my heart and mind for a while now. I've been trying to make sense of it, yet my thoughts are all jumbled and scrambled. I know myself well enough to understand that if I do not write, I will never unscramble or understand what my heart is trying to tell me. So I'm just going to write it. Maybe I will change it later, and maybe I will not. Since my dad died, I've done nothing but work from home all day during the week and take care of everyone else in my free time. Do not get me wrong, I'm not complaining about helping at all. I just realized that I have not given much time to myself. When I do, I end up in a pile of tears, missing my daddy so bad. I know it is all part of grieving, but I still do not like it. I talk to my dad a lot because I know he is around me. I just do not see him. Ever since he died, I've been asking him to send me signs. I pay attention, too. The Cherokee part of me is always watching. I do not get out very often. When I do, it is a quick trip in and out of a store. I just happen to go to this one store that is the same shopping center as my dad's favorite tool store. Every time I go to this store, when I get out of the car, this black bird is right there dancing. The first time it happened, I thought its dance looked like a Cherokee dancing. Then I started laughing and thought about my dad. Maybe he was trying to say hello to me. Like I said, every time I go there, the same black bird is dancing. I did some research and I'm pretty sure it's a crow. I am forever researching the symbolism of things, so I looked up the crow. The first site I landed on said this: many people see crows as negative, however, that is not true. Crows appear to alert you in the presence of spiritual shifts taking place around you. They are there to remind you to pay close attention to the spiritual signs that are being conveyed to guide you in the right direction. They are symbolic of change, phases, telepathic powers, and the ability to see into the realms of the unseen. I do not know about anybody else, but that blew my mind. It really did. I know there are transitions or changes on my horizon. I can feel them in my spirit, even though I do not know what they are yet. I was introduced to the Holy Spirit when I was 10 years old, and I have always known when some things are going to happen around me, whether I told anyone or not. I identify with having the traits of an empath. I'm not a holy roller or a spiritual guru at all. I just know there is a Father, Son, and Holy Ghost, and that is my higher power. It's not about religion for me at all. So I believe the crow is my daddy trying to tell me that no matter what happens, good or bad, he is going to be there. I need to just keep moving forward and keep dancing with him. Also, the dancing reminds me that when I enter his courts and praise him, being God, my dad, grandchildren, grandparents, ancestors, and angels are there with me. That way, that may all sound crazy to some people, but not to me. I had a vision years ago of dancing at God's throne with my granddaughter Zoe. I also died one time and came back. I was there at his throne, and it was the most awesome experience. The mercy and grace that I felt, the feeling of all the weight of this world being off me, it was absolutely amazing. Then God told me to go back, and I wanted to stay so bad, because there I was finally home. Yet I knew I had to go back to raise my children. There was still other things to learn and others to help. The first few months back, I felt so heavy. I still do sometimes today. Anyways, I got off on a rabbit trail. I guess there was a reason for it. God blessed us with our own home last November, the day before my dad got sick, and the 3-month nightmare began that culminated in his death. He never got to see my home. It has bothered me a lot. I had prayed for my own home, some place that I felt peaceful and one that I could fix up. I wanted it to be a place of ease and comfort to anyone who entered. It did not have to be huge, just good bones. I looked every evening for 3 months for this house. God blessed me with a patient realtor. When I walked in the first time, I just knew in my heart of hearts that this was home. Since we have been here, I've slowly realized some things about this place. Everyone who walks in the house for the first time says the same thing. This place just feels like home. I did not realize it at the time we bought it, but it is right across the street from an elementary school that I went to. We lived up the street. It was the happiest time of my childhood before puberty hit and the fighting with my dad started. When I grew up, we worked out our issues, but I know I was hell as a teenager. Our home is on a corner with a half-acre lot. The front porch faces the school. We always plant flowers. The previous owner had a flower bed in the front and what looked like ugly wheatgrass with rose bushes planted in between. We got rid of the ugly wheatgrass. We planted and left the rose bushes. We planted flowers in April earlier than usual. I did not pay much attention to the rose bushes. Around Father's Day in June, suddenly the roses started blooming. They were absolutely beautiful. There were so many they weighed the bushes down. They bloomed like crazy all of June. My dad's birthday was June 27th. They started wilting right after his birthday. I figured they would not bloom anymore this year. I was curious about roses and started researching them. The first thing I stumbled on is that roses are the birth flower of June. I thought that was pretty cool since it was my dad's birth month. It was his way of saying, hello, I'm still here. I found this explanation that rings true in my heart. Since ancient times, roses have symbolized God at work in whatever situation they appear. The intricate and elegant rose offers a glimpse of a masterful creator's active presence in creation. As this fragrant flower blooms, its buds gradually open to reveal blossoms with lovely layers, an illustration of how spiritual wisdom unfolds in people's lives. The strong, sweet scent of a rose brings to mind the powerful sweetness of love, which is the essence of God. So it's not surprising that many miracles and encounters with angels throughout history have involved roses. After reading that, I thought, well, that is nice, but there is not any more roses this year. Boy, was I wrong. I walked outside the other day and the roses were blooming again. Just a couple of days before, I was asking my dad for another sign. He sure gave it to me. If I had been asked to tell you what signs my dad would use to tell me that he is still around me, I would have never said roses and crows. Roses are beautiful, but they have thorns. Crows often get a bad rap. To many people, they are a nuisance, much like pigeons. So if I were to look at these two things with my earthly eyes, I would miss out on the messages God and my dad were trying to send me. When I look through my spiritual eyes, I can see that God is trying to tell me that no matter how thorny life gets, and no matter how negative people treat me, how negatively people treat me, like they do the crows, He is still here, even when it does not feel like it. I believe my dad is trying to tell me, just like the crows keep dancing, even when my heart aches. He also wants me to stop and pay attention to the beauty around me like the roses. Sometimes I need to be still to see the angels in my midst. This is all a reminder to me that even though I cannot see my dad, He is ever present around me just like God is. So at least for today, I'm going to stop and smell the roses and keep dancing with the crows. I love you, my dear Daddy. I have many, 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 many more stories that I have written. Through this journey of grief. I know I didn't lose my dad. I know where he is. I know where he is. I have a very beautiful spiritual lady that talked about the song The Sound of Silence. And somewhere in it, it referred to the gap and to a gap. And I understand the gap in between my earthly life and heaven. And in that gap is the sound of silence. And it's a very sacred space. And for me, my dad's always with me. I know that. I feel him all around me, and I see him all around me all the time in the signs and symbols he sends. And I think, if my dad can be that close, why isn't God closer? I can't answer that riddle today. Other than maybe I just don't know how to sit still and listen. I know I'm trying. A few months ago, I wanted to give up. I didn't want to be here anymore. And I prayed, and God sent me angels. And my dad kept sending me roses and crows. And for that, I am so grateful. Because if I had given up, I would have missed out on so much beauty. So many beautiful people. I would have missed out on 2 little granddaughters that just were born in January. I have another one coming later in this year, in the summer. I just want everybody to know how grateful I am, because I understand that even in the darkness, the light penetrates. Even in the darkness, the light finds a way through. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm so grateful for the angels in human form who even don't know they're angels that have saved my life today. Most of all, I'm grateful for the love that my dad and I shared and still share today, because that will never die. So, Daddy, this is for you. I haven't forgotten you, and I never will.